Hi, welcome to Culture Shot. So it's been 3 weeks since we did one of these videos. In the last 3 weeks we've moved house, moved office, done the 3-day field trip, the latest one of those. And so there's been a range of different things going on. So it's been pretty busy, pretty chaotic, but it's nice to be back in front of the camera again now. And what I want to share this week is just one of the lessons that came out of the latest 3-day field trip. So at the end of May, we took executives from a range of different businesses out to see 7 culture-first South African organizations and spend time with them over the course of those 3 days to learn how they do culture. And one of the lessons that came out of that came from Ocean Basket, which for those of you who aren't South African, is a chain of South African restaurants, very well known. I mean, South Africans will certainly know who they are. And we sat down with Grace Harding, who's the CEO of Ocean Basket, and learned about some of the things that they do. Now, this is a really culture-first organization. I mean, all the ones we go and visit on the 3-day field trip are, but that means different things in different ways. And what it actually means at Ocean Basket is quite dramatic. They don't have a lot of these sort of the normal structures, the normal controls, and the normal sort of measurements that you have inside an organization. In fact, there's a lot of very different things going on inside Ocean Basket. And one of the ways that one of the reasons that they do that is because they've identified that people's talents can lie in all sorts of different ways. And to get the best out of people, you might actually demand or ask them to contribute in a whole bunch of unrelated ways. So you might have somebody who's in an accounting role, but they're also particularly good at facilities management. And their attitude is, well, why don't you let them go ahead and do that? Let them fulfill an objective, do something that switches them on and keeps them engaged, which surely is the point of a culture-first organization, right? I mean, for most of us, what we do is we'd hire somebody into an accounting function and then expect a whole bunch of other sort of accounting roles to be fulfilled, a whole bunch of other financial roles to be fulfilled. And in fact, even when we hired them, we might only be looking for a bookkeeper, but we'd ask them to have all of these other various skills and things in order to ensure that they could do a whole bunch of things we may never ask them to do. Well, at Ocean Basket, they say that makes no sense. They need a bookkeeper, they need somebody to do that. But if they are not particularly good or particularly engaged about some of these other aspects of finance, why ask them to do that? You can always just hire somebody else in who's good at that. But in the meantime, you get more out of people by getting them to get involved in other ways. So they might actually have a hand in marketing or a hand in facilities management is one of the examples that actually came up. And what that means is it's very hard to be so very sort of disciplined in terms of measurement. It's very hard to be very rigid in terms of measurement. You're measuring people in performance in this area, in this area, in this area, and some of the ways in which you'd measure those things would be quite different. So you're stuck a little bit if you try and stick to the sort of traditional metrics. So they just don't. What they do is they try and find ways in which people will be engaged, try and find ways in which people will be excited, and then they allow them to get involved in those ways. And to me, it was really, really refreshing. It was a really interesting thing to do. And it's been sticking in my mind for the last couple of weeks since we did the 3-day field trip, because I can't quite get my head around how brilliant it is. And of course, I understand that there's enormous complexity in this, and it takes some bravery. But most aspects of being a culture-first organization really do. They require us to think out of the box and think differently in terms of our people management practices and what we actually want to get out of people and you know, how we'll actually be sure of good performance versus bad performance in a sort of unstructured, maybe slightly more chaotic sense. If we dare to do that, well, they believe that they can drive much higher levels of engagement. Frankly, I wouldn't bet against them. I know Ocean Basket quite well, and they've always struck me as an interesting organization. They're one that I enjoy going to their restaurants, so something's working there. But I think you can probably take that to all sorts of levels. If you dare to think that way, then you can get very, very broad. You can think very laterally with that in terms of how you actually seek engagement in your workforce, how you actually go about driving that, how you pull that out of people by allowing them to really, really do the things that they're particularly good at. We speak about this. Sometimes I think we just get caught in a very constrained way of thinking. And this was one of those ones that really it just took years of scales off my eyes when I realized what they were actually doing. So that was food for thought for me. It continues to be. I hope it's food for thought for you as well. And I wish you a very successful week.